Well, this is part 2 of making a one-piece Dutch hood. I'll just quickly show you what we've done so far. Since the last time, I've just had a little change round. What we've got this time is a pair of braces there ready to go on. There's some leather dye, some glue, the good old dessert spoon. There's a couple of little punches there. There's the hood that we already have sewn up in the first part. A couple of hood blocks, scalpel still some sewing thread, and some other bits and bobs. So we're going to carry on now and see if we can get this one finished off. Now, this was the hood that I showed you in the beginning, the one that we sewed the half side of it up. So I'm going to put that on a block, hood block. Basically, when it comes to blocking a hood, you want the hood block the same size as the bird's head but slightly enlarged around the eyes. And as you can see by the way I've carved at this one's made many a hood. This particular hood block is for a sacret. So you get the pattern nice and wet, put it over the top of the hood, like so, over the top of the block like so. Lift up the back and make sure you're somewhere near the centre, which that is. Remember the little tab I was telling you about? It's designed for pulling the hood onto the block. So that's on there nice. And the next stage is to bash around the stitching and flatten it. When you do this, I use a spoon because I just find it works better. You do all this while the leather's still wet. Any little bumps and blemishes that are in there, you want to try and take out a bit if you can. Couple in the middle there. So that's flatten the stitching down. Then I use the palm of my hand and just push it down a bit. Now when it comes to drying the hood, when it's on the block, what I've always found best is to put it out in the sun on a nice windy day, and it dries it out quite nicely, because it'll dry the inside as well as the outside. But if you're in too much of a hurry like I am, good old hairdryer, they work well. Don't put it on very hot, just keep it nice and warm, and you'll find that if you blow it from the front and just actuate the air a little bit, you'll find the beak opening will be the first place that dries out, followed by the bottom part, and then it'll work its way over, and you know when you've got it dry because it's totally changed colour and gone back to the colour that the leather was originally, like that piece. So that's the hood on the block. This was the one I showed you earlier that I'd already put on the block and already bashed. This one's now nice and dry. What I do want to do with this one now is just to rub around the seams. Somewhere in my little leather box. Now this is what used to be part of a wooden spoon. It's made of hickory, and hickory is really nice for burnishing. And all I do is I use this, I just rub it around the seam, it just flattens it out, and it gives it a little bit of a shine really. Not a lot. And then I go around the eyepiece with it as well and give it a little bit of shine. If you use this on a hood that you've dyed, you end up with the dye in there, and every time you use it you need to sand it down and just get the dye off. Otherwise, if you've got a hood that you're not going to dye, then what ends up happening is you get the dye all over the side of the hood, which we don't want here. Now I want to make this one to look like a Dutch proper, even though it is only a one-piece hood. And the way I'm going to do that is by when I drew the pattern out, I marked where the eyepieces came to. It's very, very faint, but I can see it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dye that bit in black on both sides. Now what I use is a piece of sponge, and your missus will love you for doing this, because she loves you making a lot of mess, as mine does. be careful with the sponge. You want it on a nice sharp point. If you don't get it on a sharp point, when you go to put it on, I mean, a little artist brush is probably better, but I like to use a bit of sponge. Now what I do is just get an old cornflake